All right, I'm with the planning team for Theater Lovers Club. I've been there about 4 months, and I'm amazed at how big their job is. We try to support and monitor theater all over Santa Fe, and we're adding Los Alamos soon. So we're just busy as can be, but one of the fun parts of that is trying to think of subjects that we can have our expert panel show up and talk about. And the readings project is very close to my heart. I'm with Classic Theater, among other groups in town, and we did Ibsen's The Enemy of the People back last January, and we did it at Caracas. And I really hoped for reading we would get 20 people over 2 nights. And we found that there's a lot more interest in readings than that. And I think all of us have found in the last year that people really love readings. I mean, to the point that they come up and they say, I'll give you money if you'll just do a reading of fill in the blank, which kind of was a surprise for all of us. But before we get into the subject of what we're talking about, I wanted to remind you that donations for Theater Lovers Club so that we can go on and keep doing all these programs. There's a nice little bucket there on the back, and there's, oh, you've got the bucket now. So grab Dory if you want to give us lots of money, and we will all buy champagne, and then we will support you. But I also want to tell you that there are cards on the back table, and if you want just a quick way of going to our website and getting a calendar of everything that Theater Lovers Club is announcing and doing, that's all you have to do. There's a QR code on the back. Just out of curiosity, are all of you TLC members, or do we have any new people? Everybody here? No? All right, we love that. Then you'll know that the sort of general point of what we're going to do is a brief intro by me, and then our 3 panelists will be introduced. When I was researching this, I was astounded to find that the person credited with doing a lot to establish readers' theater in the United States is, of all people, Eugene O'Neill. Back in the 1940s, during and after the war. And it also gets credit to a drama quartet in 1949 that took Shaw's Don Juan in Hell from Man and Superman and toured all over the East Coast, and every college in America said, oh, no costumes needed, no sets, no technicalities, we can put on plays and educate people. And I don't remember ever hearing of readers' theater, which is the old term for it, until the 70s or 80s of the last century. But in Santa Fe, we're kind of undergoing a renaissance. And that's what we want to talk about tonight. So we have 3 panelists, and they are all so impressive, I'm just going to read what they sent me. Because trying to summarize it will not work. First, Aaron Leventman. He received his MFA from Columbia's film program. He moved to Santa Fe from Cape Cod after his involvement as a writer, director, actor with the Provincetown Theater Company. Yay. Since living in Santa Fe, he's performed with most of local theater companies in both classics and original plays. He's also appeared in industrials, commercials, short films, and features. He is published and produced playwright and a writing, acting, and film history instructor. He's the creative director for Almost Adults Productions, which has created full productions and stage readings for full-length and short plays programs with a focus on social justice issues, both locally, virtually, and as co-productions in New York City. And we do have something coming up for Almost Adults. When is it, in April?
Yeah, mid-April. People of the Power 2.0.
Yay!
Look for that in your local listings.
Now, anybody who loves Shakespeare in town knows Ariana Karp. Ari is an actor, director, educated, and a hell of a good cellist. She's been the artistic director at Incite Shakespeare Company, Santa Fe, since 2018. I first met her when she just happened to mention she had her master's in theater from the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Arts. God help us. Has impressed me ever since, and she brings a focus to Shakespeare in Santa Fe that I think is one of a kind and just wonderful. She has a very long bio, which I will let her tell you about later. But since the pandemic, she's been responsible for bringing 2 Shakespeares every July to the Actors Lab, which is just extraordinary, usually a comedy or tragedy, as she will this year. And she started doing readings. Last year, in January, it was Piglet, the Hamlet Impact Festival. Cracks me up every time I think of it. And I went and saw 4 different readings of plays that they had done. Plays about Hamlet, which is amazing. They'll be doing the same thing January 16th to 25th this year, but for Othello. It's called RELUME, the Othello Impact Festival, again at the Actors Lab, and you can ask her about that later. And finally, our dear Jennifer Graves had a 35-year acting career in New York in regional theater before retiring to Santa Fe in 2011. And she has been a performer with every theater in Santa Fe in multiple roles ever since then, including the 100th anniversary celebration of the Santa Fe Playhouse. She's a founding member in 2013 of Santa Fe Classic Theater, served for multiple years on its board as president and treasurer, and she helped produce 5 years of outdoor Shakespeare. She also chaired the Theater Lovers Club for several years through the pandemic and beyond. She's on the staff of the New Mexico Actors Lab. She was in Scott Harrison's Ironweed production of Race Stories, which a lot of us saw and loved last year. And she just recently directed SFCT's staged reading of Noel Coward's Blithe Spirit at the Actors Lab. So, here's now, I had sent them a list of questions, and none of them can say, oh, I never thought about that. We'll find out how it goes. And let me give you the first one. And why don't we just start with Ari and work our way back in terms of responses. The premise of this panel is that stage readings, particularly in Santa Fe, are enjoying a moment. There were many readings here recently, beginning in January of 25 and continuing into 26, including the ones coming up. Why do you think readings are so popular?
I think there's a couple of reasons that readings are very popular. I think, as I'm sure is not news to anyone, the cost of producing theater is very high, and doing a full production where you need to hire a costume designer and a stage manager, and you want to pay your actors really well. At least that's the policy that I like to live by, being an actor myself. I like to get paid for my work. But it's a way, to me, of distilling theater down to its most essential, which is essentially, hopefully, a phenomenal script and some fantastic actors. And I think the other thing is we're living in a world right now where we are so saturated, like everything is shown to us. You know, all of film and television doesn't leave a lot to the imagination. And I think one of the many things I love about stage readings is the way in which they force is maybe an interesting verb there, but they provoke the audience to use their imagination, to imagine the whole show staged. And in that way, I think we give a little bit of power back to the audience. And provoking people's imagination is always a very high on my list of goals as a theater maker. So I think that for me is one of the main reasons.
What do you think, Aaron?
I would agree. I think the economics of doing theater has changed a lot just in the last year. A lot of us know why. Funding cuts. I can say for me, the reason why I do readings, and the reason why I have done readings over the last decade, even before that, is that about 10 years ago, I did a full production of a short play program of my own work that was thematically related. And it was great, but it was a year of my life. And it was, fundraising, and it was a lot. I had a full-time job, I had a husband and a dog and all that, and it was kind of I had a great staff, but it was a lot of work. And I said, that was great, I'm not going to do that again for a long time. Now I'm doing it again in April. but it's been 10 years, so I'm ready to, I know more, I know how to do it better, so it won't be quite as traumatic. But I think also we live in a great community here where people are very interested in the arts. They are interested in, I think what's great about readings, and what Ariana said, I thought was right on, but I think the great thing about readings is it really is the relationship between the words and the actor without the distractions of what you would see in a full production. So you can just appreciate that element of the play. And there are audiences here that want to see that. You mentioned Provincetown. I lived in Provincetown, and it was the same thing there. You know, you could get 50 people to show up in the dead of winter in Massachusetts for a stage reading of something. And it was because that community Provincetown has a huge history of readings and theater and the arts going back to Eugene O'Neill, and they were very interested in seeing more of that at any given time. And I think we live in a special community like that. There are other parts of the country where people might not be as interested in stage readings, but we're very lucky, that we live in a place where the arts are really supported, and hopefully will continue to be supported. But I think that, stage readings are something that, some of the ones I've done, the full production of full-length plays, we did them in like 3 rehearsals because we figured out how to make the most of the time. And I agree with what Ariana was saying. The culture has really changed in Santa Fe since I moved here 21 years ago. When I moved here, I don't think I ever got paid to do any active theater, and that's really changed. And I never ask people to do things for free anymore. So even if I'm doing a reading, I'll pay someone. It won't be as much as a full production, but that's part of it too. Is that if you're doing a reading, you can do it in just a few rehearsals rather than a month of rehearsals as you might for a full production. So the economics has really changed, and it's made it possible for small companies to do something without a lot of support, and to find venues are always challenging, but it's doable, especially for reading. You can figure it out. So
yeah. Well, I agree with whatever Ari says and whatever Aaron says. It's absolutely correct. We have fewer resources financially. We have fewer spaces. A lot of our spaces during COVID went away. So the theaters that we have that are producing theaters are producing certain types of theater that is in their niche, that they want to produce. One of the reasons I think that readings, I feel, are getting to be more successful is that you can read plays that you might not be able to produce otherwise. You can do readings of older plays. You can do readings of new plays just to hear how they sound for playwrights, so that playwrights get a chance to hear their plays, which I think is very important in the playwriting process. You really need to give playwrights a chance to hear their plays done by actors, so they go, oh, that's not what I meant. Also, what's wonderful about the explosion of theater since the 21 years or the 10 or 15 that I've been here is that we have a variety of wonderful actors, some of whom have retired from professional, some that are just out of college and wanting to do something, and there are not enough avenues for them in our 3 stages to employ them all. So what's great about reading is that you have a chance to showcase actors as well that would not normally get a chance to stretch their wings, do something fun, and it requires less time out of their schedule, and so you can get some actors that would not normally be able to donate the time.
I think, my next question is going to be, what do you think of the pros of stage reading? So I think we've covered it all. But let me throw out one thing. I was an actress for the first 25 years I was in the theater, and I gave up because I began being terrified. I could not remember my lines. And it's almost like the fear is more important than actually going up on stage. So I gave that up and went to other things. And Jen let me be the narrator of Blithe Spirit last month. Uh-oh. All of a sudden, I don't have that worry. I think they're probably a lot of older actors in Santa Fe that have my same concerns. So I'm hoping we will bring them back. So we talked about the pros. What do you think are the limitations to stage readings, and how would it affect your choice of what you could do for a stage reading or not do? Uh-oh.
Oh, do you want me to start? I'm so sorry. I was miles away. This is gonna sound really salty, and I don't mean it to, but I think the limitation of a staged reading is if you have a bad script. If you have a bad script, you can't do a good reading of a bad script. So I think it's really important when choosing the readings that I think that you're going in with a like, why this play now, which is for me always the organizing principle of why produce any work. It's such a lift to get anything up on stage, even if it's a staged reading. And so I think being really intentional about what you are doing stage readings of and why you feel that this play has a resonance to a contemporary audience in this moment and for this community. And so that I think that's, yeah, it didn't mean it to sound so salty, but that's kind of my feeling on it. I don't really see there being many cons to a stage reading.
All right. How about you?
Well, I think the problematic stage readings I've seen is when the director tries to do too much. In other words, it's almost like a full production where the actors still have scripts in their hands. I've seen stage readings where there's like a lot of props. There's one I remember back, I think this was at the Playhouse during Benchwarmers, where somebody was like holding a gun in one hand and their script in the other. And I think another time, one of the actors had the script on the floor so that they could read. And then, so I think those kind of things, I think what you want is to make it an intentional stage reading, not a stage reading where you really want it to be a full production, but you didn't quite have the elements to do it, so it was a stage reading, but it really felt like halfway between one or the other. And so the production I did last year, People of the Power of Teatro Prague, it was a reading, and it felt a little bit like that, like they was going a little bit too far into full production. So we're just going to do it as a full production this year because they're short plays and we can do it. But I think that there's so many different kinds of readings you can do. We did a stage reading here during Pride Month of short plays for the queer community or for anyone, and we did it with music stand where there wasn't movement. It was just because we didn't have room here. And it was fine, but I like when there's stage readings of that, you can indicate location, space, relationship with some movement. And if you do it well enough, the audience will actually forget that the actors are holding scripts. So I think it's just how you visualize it in terms of knowing it's a reading, but adding enough visual information with what you can do in a reading so that it's compelling for the audience.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's a fine line. But you have to remember that a reading is a sketch. It's not a full portrait. And also, you have to remember that you're asking your actors for probably a lot less than a normal production to do this reading, so you cannot impinge on their time too much, so that the rehearsal time, perforce, has to be fairly small. Also, as the director for a reading, the director spends a lot more time than the actors. So you have to make sure that as you're directing, you have to make sure that you know that you've got the time to do this. Because it's not, oh, hey gang, let's just read the script. You have to figure out if you want to do any cuts, sound, how much movement you want to do, if any indications of costumes, or but as Erin says, you want to keep it to a minimum so the audience can use their imagination. And I think that's what the audience loves to do, is use their imagination. And I think one of the things that is limiting for a staged reading, especially for an actor, it's very frustrating. You don't have the time to delve into character. You don't have the time to really work relationships. So you're really you have to make sure your actors can project the written word for an audience. In other words, if you've got a theater, it can't be into the script, and which it happens all too often for readings that I've seen, is the actors' words get caught in the script, and the script is blocking the actor from the audience. So that's a technique that you have to make sure the actors have. Yes, I can read, but I'm also engaging the audience. Otherwise, it becomes chamber music that nobody hears.
You know, I'm going to spring one on you that I didn't forewarn you about because it's something you all have said. Classic theaters, right now, we're reading through plays, trying to figure out what our readings are going to be in the coming year. And I have always wanted to do one particular play in my life. And when I say this, they're all going to moan. But I don't know that it could possibly be done for reading for the reason Jennifer just listed. A Long Day's Journey into Night. Something that complex, could it be done as a reading? You really think?
I think so.
Tell me
I think
about
go do it, Suzanne. Go make it happen.
3 hours.
Go make it happen.
3 hours.
Well, I think there's a specific kind of play that I think works really, really well in a reading, and that's when the language, and I keep using it, this has been my buzzword for the last 6 months, when the language is really muscular, when the language is really complex. That's, I think, when it works very well as a
You
reading.
think so?
I do, because it gives us a chance to hear.
Well, I totally agree with you. I mean, we just did Blithe Spirit, which is Noel Coward, very wordy, very witty. It's all about dialogue and repartee. And the actors didn't have a whole lot of rehearsal, but the play was there. And as long as you said, as long as the play is there, we can hear it. And that's the prerequisite of the actor.
Well, drawing on that again, would you say that what is the most important function for a director picking? Is it picking the cast or picking the script, or both?
Well,
equally important.
one thing I was going to say, similar to what you were both talking about, I mean, I think plays that have a lot of stage directions, action narrative, are harder to do as a reading. If you've been to a stage reading of a screenplay, there's a lot of action narrative, even more than dialogue, they can be really treacherous. And they can go on for a really long time, because something that might take 1 second on screen takes a much longer time to read. So the audience it's almost like you're giving the audience too much imagination. It's like that you have to hear a lot of description of something, and if it's too much, it can be harder to process. I know I produced a stage reading of two Petty-Chayefsky plays, and was in it, and we had to cut a lot of the stage directions because he wrote, it was actually a television play, and it was really, really long. And for an audience, it's a little harder to process that. The dialogue, because you're seeing the relationships with the actors, you can pick up on a lot faster. So.
Well, okay, what do you think of this statement, which I just made up out of my own head? A good stage reading with good characters can illuminate a theater work almost as well as a fully staged reading, and sometimes better. Now, I actually want to mention the name of one of the priceless assets of Santa Fe Theater, which is Robert Benedetti. And about 7 or 8 years ago, he decided to do a series of readings in the winter at the Actors. I think this might have even been before the Actors left. They might have still been at the Project. And I really was not at all excited about readings. And he did Stop Kiss. And it was partly to see how it would go over with the audience. And the next season, they did a full stage production of Stop Kiss. And I actually liked the reading better. I'm not quite sure why.
Well, I can tell you what.
Probably don't.
Not being shy. No, and basically, it has to do with what Erin just said. So many of our playwrights, young playwrights, are not really writing for the stage. They're very influenced by film. So what they forget is that you can't change scenes on dime. And so Stopkist had this sequence of scenes where they were going from one place, from the park to the apartment to a diner to what have you, from time back and forth. And unfortunately, the actors were spending more time changing costumes than they were really relating with each other. And what was wonderful about the reading is we imagined all those places. And so we got to see the relationship. And it was, I think, due to the playwright, somewhat, the director didn't know how to overcome it. But the playwright, I think, was writing a film, not a play. And that happens a lot in our younger playwrights right now. They haven't had enough experience writing for the stage.
What about Shakespeare? Do you feel that Shakespeare and staged reading can work just as well, or not?
Yeah, I do. I mean, we have, ISC Santa Fe has started, we're now in, I think, the 3rd year of our BARD series, B-A-R, parentheses, and parentheses, which we call our sort of speakeasy Shakespeare. And it's sort of script in one hand, beer in the other. And it was started, I was very inspired by, there's a company, unfortunately, that no longer exists in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, called 7 Stages Shakespeare. And they did this once a month, every month for 10 years. They took their audience through the entirety of Shakespeare's canon, I think 3 times over the course of 10 years. And the thing I loved about it, it's an element that I definitely like to have in my own productions, is there's this glorious moment for spontaneity. Like, I think it completely depends on what your creative process is. If you're going to set everything, then perhaps, I don't know if I have an opinion on that, but I do think that the staged reading, and particularly with Shakespeare, leaves so much room for imaginative interpretation, for being in the moment, for, you know, if Sir Toby and Sir Andrew are having a fun time and they see someone's fries, you know, and they just like take it and they're like, oh, cakes and ale, you know, so there's a lot of room for play, I think, in those staged readings, and I will say staged, like there's one rehearsal, and there might be some text work with the director, and the director might come in with an idea for the show, but I think it's, I don't know that I would say they're better or worse. I think it's just something different, and it completely depends on the creative process of whomever is putting the show on. But I think they have the capacity to be quite delightful and fun. Which has been a very popular program for us.
Yes,
And community building too,
Yeah.
because it's an opportunity for so many people to come in that maybe are like, oh, I don't know about the Shakespeare stuff, and it's a way to sort of say, hey, you're an actor, have fun. That's really the most important thing.
But as directors, the thought that occurs to me, maybe you can address this, Eric, is that surely if we've only got a couple of rehearsals, especially with a play of great depth, surely you have to cast the best actors you can get hold of. Because, I mean, an amateur, I don't think, could probably do it in a rehearsal or two. What do you think of that? Am I wrong?
Sorry, I talked too much, so I don't know.
Oh, no.
I think that there are some actors I've worked with that are not good readers. They're great physical actors. They can do a lot of other things, but there's some actors, like I for one am a much better reader than I think I am like a physical actor. Some kind of the other way around, but I think there's some that are just don't have that kind of skill. I hate to use that word skill because it sounds judgmental, but just that, you know, actors, there are many different kinds of actors, and they're great at doing a lot of things, and then maybe not as good at doing other things. So I think you're right, but I think you can do. I think it's amazing, like what you can do with not a lot of time if you set the parameters. Like we did, I think 9 years ago, we did a stage reading of I Never Sang for My Father. It was a beautiful play, and there just wasn't an opportunity to do it as a full production. We did 3 fairly long rehearsals. It's a long play, 2.5-hour play. It was fine, because budgeted the time really well. And so I think, yes, if you have the right people and that are really committed to doing it, and it's like you manage the time of the rehearsals really well, you can do anything, you know, in that. And I know, like, for your productions, you did, like, what, like, for Othello, and sort of doing, like, what?
5, 6 days.
Oh.
Right. and I would never have known that.
Yeah,
So,
well, that's the
yeah.
goal. That's why we like to tell people that at the end of the show.
Right.
And then we get a collective.
Otherwise, you're like, oh, 2 rehearsals, I'm not going to go see that. but most people don't understand that you can do a lot with that if you figure out how to do it.
I think just one thing I would also like to add is that I think it really depends on what your definition of success is. So is success like a perfectly polished, like completely every single word has a specific spot, or is your version of success, I want the actors to have a really rich exploration of this text, because those are 2 different exercises. So I think being really clear from the outset about what exactly are we doing with this reading, like do we want to create the perfect production and then just, you know, we would add whatever it is, or do we want to create a space of play for the actors and sort of have, I always think of the director as sort of setting up the playground that we're going to play on, and sort of giving the actors room to play, which I think so frequently, part of the reason I do the quick race process is because it really empowers actors to understand that they are creative collaborators as well, and that they are just as creative and they're also on the front lines, to quote Slings and Arrows, right? Actors are on the front lines! And they can be under a huge amount of adrenaline and pressure and make some of the most extraordinary choices if the work is there, if the trust is there, if the ensemble trusts each other and they trust the work they've done on the play, it can lead to really extraordinary results. So I think going in with a very specific purpose of like, what is this exploration, is really helpful for figuring out what our playground is for this.
So I was part of an ensemble where we did a series of plays during the summer, had a great director, and he said, as we would always do a table read first, and he said, my goal is to get us at the end of rehearsal to where you started with the table read. So very often, the actors will just intuitively bring something, and then to try and make that spontaneous again during repeating is the I think the whole exercise of rehearsal is how to make it look like you're doing it for the first time. But if you're doing it for the first time, you've already got that spontaneity.
It's so funny you said that, because when I was in graduate school and I took an acting class as part of the curriculum, our teacher said you have to work harder to get the spontaneity back into it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? If we work harder, we're going to lose the spontaneity. And then the Benchwarmers play you and I were in, Larry Glazer's play. Remember how much we rehearsed that?
Yes.
We rehearsed the crap out of that. It was a 15-minute play. And then I understood what my teacher was talking about like 20 years later, because we got the spontaneity because we could wake up in the middle of the night and recite the whole play. Like we didn't have to worry about it. So then I understood what it means to rehearse a lot too. But there are other ways you can do that without having to labor it.
That does make me think of another question though, which is that again, when we did Blithe Spirit and Jen directed, we only had, what, 2 rehearsals?
We had 2
Before we did it.
for the full
And
cast.
it's Noel Coward, so it was big. And I think the panic that we all felt actually could be turned to advantage in the reading, you know, but if you have your actors.
Nothing like adrenaline.
Okay, how much do you think, I mean, here we are in Santa Fe, we have very few venues, the cost of productions, I mean, even a simple little play anymore can easily run you through the break by the time you're through with rentals and rights and paying the actors and everything else. So do you think that we're looking at a lot more stage readings in the next couple of years? Jump in.
Well, I know that Santa Fe Classic Theater, it has to right now. Our vision, we were very, very lucky to get a wonderful venue in the Botanical Garden, which enabled us to put on you know, full costumed, amphitheater, outdoors, beautifully, you know, gardened. We had the garden as our set. We didn't have to, you know, get in there and do a whole lot of set. But when that went away, I think Classic Theater for the last year has spent their time trying to find some place that they can recreate that outdoors. And they've not discovered any place comparable that can do that, or people that are with the city or anybody else that's willing to host it. So the question is, what do we do with these wonderful Shakespeare classic plays that aren't done? That's kind of a niche, and how do we keep them going? And the only solution I think we've come up with is let's do a lot of readings, because we can slip them into the theaters. We can even do them here. We can do them at the, you know, this is a fabulous stage to reading it. There are all sorts of places that you can't do a full 3-week, 4-week production, but you can do a 2-night reading. And so this is a way of flexing the muscles, keeping it going until you find a home or some way of making it feasible financially to do a full production for us.
How about almost adults, Darlene? Are you going to be doing readings in future? Or
Yeah, well, it's funny because over the last decade, I've worked with you know, different directors here to do the kind of stage readings that I wanted to do. Michael Gray's being one of them, and Morris Studi and Talia Pira, and I had these bucket list of plays I really wanted to do, and I've kind of run out of the bucket list plays, but I want to do something. So we're trying to come up with I'm trying to come up with another play that I really want to do. But yeah, absolutely. You know, after we do our production in April, I'm planning to do another stage reading of, you know, really good play that, you know, I'm interested. Yeah, I'm interested in like plays that just don't get done very often anymore. And I love what Jennifer was saying, that there are all these great actors. There's more actors than there are opportunities. And let's create opportunities for actors. It's kind of what Almost Adults is about, even if they're not full productions, because actors love to work and love to work on great material and work with great people. So that's kind of when I'm hoping to do more. But yeah, I think there are going to be more stage readings because the economics is just, it's going to get worse, not better, I think.
yes.
And hopefully it'll get better someday. But until then, but when I look at like calls, because you know I'm a playwright, I submit my plays all the time, and when I look at the calls for entries, all of these companies are like low tech or no tech, you know, don't submit more than a play with more than 2 actors. It's like they've gotten so minimal that if you have a play that requires more than that, it's really hard. And that's a reflection of funding issues and just like not having the opportunities to do more than that. So yeah, I just see that going in that direction all over the country, and if not the world. So yes, I do think we'll be seeing more, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think we all have a lot to look forward to.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about Othello coming up? Because
Yes.
we have several readings coming up in the next couple of months that are cool.
I would be absolutely delighted. So we're doing ISC Santa Fe starting this Friday. We have 2 weekends of RELUME, which is one of my favorite words from Shakespeare's Othello, relight. The Othello Impact Festival, which is looking at 4 different plays by contemporary playwrights that are sort of in dialogue with or reactions to Shakespeare's Othello. So we actually have the playwright, 2 of our shows here now.
Yes.
We are doing Keith Hamilton Cobb's incredible two-hander American Moor, as well as the new play 9 Moons, which is sort of in development at this time. We're also doing Toni Morrison's Desdemona, which is a kind of, it's almost closer to a poem than a play. I think there's songs in it. The characters kind of speak in poems. And it's Othello, Desdemona, and kind of the other women in their lives in the afterlife, reflecting on their experience. And then we're also doing Lolita Chakrabarty's Red Velvet, which is set in 1833, and is about the trailblazing actor Ira Aldridge, who somebody got sick, couldn't go on as Othello, and he was one of the first Black actors to play Othello on the West End. And they're all something we discovered when we were working on the play this summer. The word we kept coming back to as we were working on it was sharp. This is a very sharp play. If you get near it, it cuts you. It's very focused. There's very little subplot, and especially the way that we cut it. And it's just focused, it's sharp, and it's a little bit claustrophobic. And I like that, because I love making audiences uncomfortable. I'm like, bring it, let's go. But I think what I'm really excited about, which we began to explore last year with the Piglet, the Hamlet Impact Festival, is just different ways of, and different voices in reaction to this play. That is like this kind of cultural weight. It's really, I remember when I called, I hope most of you know Josh Wharton, who is our Othello this summer, just incredible actor. And I called him and I said, the reason I chose this play was I want to do this work with you and Andrew. However, before I go any further in the production, if this is not a role you are interested in playing, I will change the season. Because I have no interest in doing this play with someone I've never worked with before. And it was very important to me that we had this like multiple years of working together, of building trust, of building a communication system, that I basically said, do you feel like the ISC and the ensemble can give you the tools that you need to do the show and not like be permanently damaged by the show, essentially. And he was like, yeah, let's do it, let's go, because that's who Josh is, and he's a just extraordinary collaborator, and so deeply grateful to work with him. But the play just kept sticking. It's just, there's something about it. I just wanted more. I wanted to explore it more. I wanted to explore its contradictions, its pain, its like deeply uncomfortable moments. And I read as many plays as I could that sort of are explorations of. There's also another one that I actually got the rights to, but I was like, okay, we can't do 5, which was written by Paula Vogel, called Desdemona, a play about a handkerchief, which is a three-hander, very different actually from all the plays we're doing. But I just wanted to explore the sort of, it's almost like the cultural biography of this play, like the way that this play has impacted the people who have played the role, the way this play has impacted artists who have any sort of interaction with this play, and that's the goal. And it was really important to me that each of these plays has a very specific focus, and is investigating a different thing. So like American More is an incredible two-hander with an actor auditioning for the part of Othello and a director who we don't see at the back, right? And it's all of it, it's the thoughts, it's the baggage, it's the pain, it's the trauma, it's all of the deferred dreams of doing Shakespeare as an actor of color. And it's searing. I remember when I first read it, I had to stop at one point and just like have a glass of water and just be like, wow, it's just such a powerful play. And 9 Moons, Keith's other play that we're working on, is an exploration of the 9 months before the start of Shakespeare's Othello. So it's a low simmer. It's how Othello and Brabantio and Desdemona and Cassio are all kind of interacting, and how these relationships are threaded together, and how they change over those 9 moons. So it's just, there's a lot of variety, and it's sort of this theme of like this cultural object that we have to deal with Shakespeare, and I'm really excited about it, clearly. Sorry for going on. I'm very excited, and I hope you'll come out and join us for multiple of the shows, because they're all vastly different, with very different focuses.
I noticed that. I think that's very exciting that you're working on. Now, I know you're not doing readings, but give us a feeling for when you're doing your show in April.
Yes. So last year we did a stage reading of short plays called the theme was People Have the Power, which is inspired by the Patti Smith, Fred Sonic Smith song, which I saw a video of them performing it during the election cycle. And it's this really empowering song about people making a difference in their everyday lives. And so we did a call for entries. I got an unbelievable amount of entries. Found plays and that fit the kind of model I was looking for, which were plays that weren't polemic in dealing with social justice, but they had an original take on it, using humor, using irreverency, and it was very successful. We sold out both shows, standing room only, so I wanted to do it again, but this time we're going to do them as full productions and do 2 more performances, doing 4 performances at Teatro Paragos. It's at Teatro Paragos. I don't remember the exact dates, but I think it's like the 2nd and 3rd weekend in April.
But it's an almost adults.
It's almost adults, yeah, but we're renting from Teatro Paragos, and we're already looking at plays, and there's, what I was amazed by when I did a call for entries, and this is sort of what we're talking about, is that I got submissions, one by a really famous playwright and TV writer, and I'm like, why are you submitting to me? Like, you have something on HBO and Fox, but my theory why that is because there are harder opportunities for playwrights even at this writer's level to get things done. And so she's willing to have her one-act play done in a tiny little theater in Santa Fe.
Excellent.
But the plays are going to be really interesting, and we're going to have a group of fabulous actors, some of who are here today, who are going to be playing maybe 1 or 2 roles, and a group of directors too. And it's really an opportunity for all of us to work together, and for people, for me to be able to work with people that I haven't worked with before and have wanted to. And I sort of discovered over the last 6 months, because I'm president of the board for Theater Santa Fe, and we tried to update our call board so that directors that weren't connected to actors could go and find actors. And we're still doing that, and we got a lot of headway in it. And there are all these actors that I've never heard of in Santa Fe that have these amazing resumes that have moved from LA and New York, and they're choosing to live here. So it's an opportunity for me to work with some of them who are also all to work together. So that'll be exciting.
And I'm going to stick in one here since Jen has just done her play. Santa Fe Classic Theater will be presenting Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Dead on February 27th and 28th. And this lady is going to be our narrator and take us on a incredible story. So we have a tremendous selection of stuff just coming up. I'd like to turn this open to questions.
Yes, who is directing Rosencrantz?
Oh, any questions of these fascinating people? I'm so excited about this.
Yeah, I wanted to report last night, Alexander Lane, do you know?
Yes.
He put together, he'd always wanted to do Uncle Vanya, and we did Annie Baker's translation, which was quite extraordinary. And it was just a wonderful experience of what a reading can be. And this is around a table, there was no audience, but it was very powerful. And so when we talked afterwards, and everyone was very excited, and there were actors I'd never seen before, which was wonderful. But his question was sort of what next? In other words, my question to you all is, here's someone who has a great passion to keep on with this, and we don't do Chekhov here. And we don't have a theater that's interested. I mean, we have wonderful, the Shakespeare, but we don't have some of those classics. And so this is where it seems to me the idea of having readings, not only is it great for the creative community, but you're educating your audience. They're exposed to Chekhov. They're going to be asking and understanding more of the complexities of theater, the more smorgasbord you give them. And it was just, I wondered what to say to someone like Alexander who wants to go to the next step.
Tell them to call us.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, does a person go to the theaters to see if they can work in a slot? I mean,
Yes.
I feel like where would he go?
Well, and Alexander is a ISC associate artist,
Right.
and I adore working with him. And
Yeah.
I know he has been taking a break from theater for a little while.
Yes.
But he is sort of, as he gets back into it, you know, one of my big goals, like one of my reasons for starting the associate artist program, we have 11 associate artists, all of whom basically have first right of refusal for casting. So when I'm thinking about a show, I'm usually thinking about, okay, what would be a good challenge for this actor? And then I'll talk to them like, what do you want your challenge to be next year? And that's kind of the way I cast, is I start with them. And then sometimes people are like, I can't do this summer. I'm just like, okay, great, cool, moving on. But I know Alexander's also working on a one-person show as well, that I'm in talks with to try and get him to maybe do it on like Thursday night when we're doing the rep season. Because I think, for me, it's a very lonely position to be an artistic director. We don't talk about that a whole lot, but it's a deeply lonely position. And I felt for many years that I was the artistic bottleneck of the company. And so for me, one of the great things about having associate artists is like opening it up. I'm like, hey, what do you guys want to do? Like, what do we have the money to do? What can we? And that's why, like, my associate artistic director Zoe Burke has been running the BARD program without me. Oh my God! You know, I don't have to be responsible for all the content that we create, which is really delightful. But so, I'd think like, yeah, send them to, have them come talk to anyone on here, because I think it's always about just can we get a space, and what can we do next?
Right.
We
You know.
would definitely be interested if that doesn't work.
I want to say conversely, there are a lot of playwrights that want their work performed in Santa Fe, a lot of whom are in the audience, and today, and we're all looking for opportunities. You know, Leslie did this brilliant reading, sitting on a stool reading letters. It was, I don't mean to minimize it, was captivating. And so I want to see more things like that too. New work by local playwrights. And yeah, no doubt.
I'm gonna throw that out to the audience now, because my question to you, if we're gonna do more staged readings, what are the ones that you want to see?
Yes.
Yeah.
What kind of theater are you missing? What kind of theater excites you? What would you like to see done even as a reading?
Do you want to see classics? Do you want to see experimentals, new plays?
Yes to all of that.
100% new plays. You know, great, love classics. Shakespeare is, I guess, my exception at this point. But I'd rather go see Dale's plays than Chekhov or any of these other people.
It's quite a compliment.
Can I ask? I do have one question, which is sort of back to the beginning of the conversation, which is in certain types of plays where it's been written in a way where the staging or the lighting or the sound is a character. And it's not just, you know, someplace to stick the bodies and have the maneuver around furniture. And so when you are looking at plays where the playwright has a role for those non-people parts, how do you handle that when you go, I'm just going to do stage readings? Like, how do you account for that missing body?
Good question.
Well, I would say maybe don't do those plays. I'm kidding. But it's hard. But I think you have to have a very creative director to figure out a way to do that. I remember my high school did the bald soprano. Do people know there's a clock that keeps gonging throughout the play, like it goes past 12. It's like 13, 14, 30 rings. And so we had a character playing the clock. So I mean, that's a stupid example, but I mean, you can come up with, with a really creative director, we'll figure out a way to do it, to represent it, but it's hard. It's hard, like I would choose to do that because I'm not skilled enough.
We were very lucky from Blithe Spirit to get a sound designer that somebody had already created. So the music throughout Blithe Spirit is another character. And without that, it would not have worked as well.
I think we have time for one more question.
I would also say I would do the play anyway, because that's just who I am. But I think, to me, there's a difference. Do you want the play to be naturalistic, or do you want it to be truthful? Because if you want it to be naturalistic, if you want those lighting changes, if those are absolutely necessary, then I say, yeah, maybe don't do it. But if you're searching for the truth of the story, I think there are infinitely many numbers of ways that you can stage something in such a way. I just did, at the Shakespeare Theater Association, I just did an entire panel on abstracting intimacy and violence, which are usually two things that we spend a lot of time staging. And I really do think, sometimes it's like, oh, we can't afford a fight director, or we can't afford an intimacy director. But there's artistic reasons to do it too, which is, again, to me, about provoking the audience's imagination. It just keeps coming back to this. So if it's like, I don't know, if you're doing Angels in America as a reading, for example, and the angel has to fly in, there are very, very tiny little things you can have the actors do, of just, the angel appears, above, and everyone just looks up. And it's like, we don't have to see the person there, but we can feel that their presence is there. And so I think just specificity is key with staged readings, but also that there are many creative solutions to things that seem like insurmountable things to stage that we can play with and we can discover it. Sometimes it'll work and sometimes it won't, but that's, to me, that's the beauty of theater.
Well, we're almost out of time. I'm going to, instead of taking another question, I'm just going to ask everybody very, very quickly. What is your dream show you want to do a reading here in San Ari?
I'd love to revive the Long Dead but Well Read series, but put it in the bar. Which was like, Shakespeare's contemporaries, and just make it super irreverent. But honestly, the play that I have taught it before in a Shakespeare performance and difference class that I taught, the one I would love to do a reading of, and particularly because, I don't know if everyone knows this, ISC Santa Fe is doing a season of Revenge and Forgiveness, with Hamlet and The Tempest this summer. And a play that I really want to do this year is Aimé Césaire's A Tempest, which is an incredible play.
It's so funny.
It's funny, it's devastating, it's so many things, but I think it would be a beautiful companion piece to The Tempest.
So how about you?
I would like, you and I have talked about this, I would love to see some of the Greek plays done in Santa Fe. They're just not done anymore. Medea, Antigone, Oedipus. I think they would be great as readings. There's also a play that I saw off Broadway by Wallace Shawn called Aunt Dan and Lemon. And it's really interesting, it's very relevant right now. So I think that would be very different periods, but those are ones that come to mind.
How about you, Jim?
Well, I've been reading a lot of O'Neill lately, and my favorite O'Neill I always would love to do is Moon from the Mystic Island. I think that's one of his very, very best.
Yeah.
And it's such a poignant, funny, tragic play. But again, if you're doing a reading, I think the words have to be delicious. And I think O'Neill's words are wonderful. So I think that's something that we all need to hear.
Leslie, I can see you waiting.
Yeah, I just want to make a quick announcement. Next month, our talk is going to be quite different. Tri-M is going to let us in and watch a dance rehearsal. So that's our talk next month. And the following month, March, we're going to have play reading with the playwrights again. 3rd annual play reading.
Yay.
So
Yay.
if you have a script in your pocket and you want to hear somebody read it, send it in.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.